back to the next Aid Station podcast. I'm your host, Jake Kilgore. This morning and in studio, friend of ours, and also, more notably, Aid Station 5 captain of the DC Peaks 50. Mueller Park, baby. But more recently, slightly more notable, podium finisher of the Moab 240, Elle Jones.
Yes.
What's up, girl?
Not a lot. I'm here. I'm ready to unpack.
Okay. We are going to break down Moab 240 in its entirety. So we have about a 15-hour session coming up, right?
Yeah, 15 hours. We've got 2 cases of tissues.
Yes.
Yeah.
We got rock stars. We got tissues. We got all the necessities.
Combo.
Yes. Got a couple aid stations in there so we can get through all this. But I'm going to back up because I think this year, 2023, for you, as a runner, I've got to say this got to be your biggest year.
For sure. Yeah. Because last year was my first 100.
Yeah.
And then this year it was more of let's see what I can do.
Yeah. So we'll give it the listeners a little history lesson. So you and I met on the Ute 100.
Yes.
So we met a year, 14 months ago.
Yeah.
Ute 100, August 2022. And there's a couple sections of out and back.
Yeah.
And at night, Mick is pacing me, and you had a pacer with you. You had to climb all the way up to the top of this peak and then back. It was just an out and back.
Yep.
And we came back and we're like, oh my gosh, that chick is like right behind us, dude. Who is that? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was you.
It's like, that was me.
Yeah. So
just living my own life.
Oh yeah. And you guys stopped and you're like, oh, hey, what's up? And we talked to you guys and you took a picture.
Because that was the last time that we were going to see you. Because I think there was one more out and back, but there was no way we weren't going to be that fast.
It was too short, but we ended up, so I was running in second place at that time and you were in third.
I think I was in third at that point.
Yeah. And then we kind of just kept the same distance like the rest of the race and finished. But the Ute 100 in the LaSalle's of Moab, Utah, awesome course.
Yeah.
That was your first 100.
My first 100 that I finished, I don't know if you know this, I actually did Bryce, but ended up DNFing at mile 80-ish, I think. I technically was making cutoffs and could have gone further, but I was like, I don't know. I'm tired. The next section's kind of sketchy. I've got nothing to prove. And I had made so many mistakes that I wanted to go back and do something different. So
and when was that?
I'm trying to remember when Bryce is. I feel like maybe April or May.
That same year, 2022.
That same year, yeah.
So then something happened and you're like, I got to go finish 100. I got to.
Yeah. I think after that I wasn't sad, but I wanted to go back and do it better. And so I kind of clicked into more committed training. I was pretty committed, but not skipping anything at that point. And definitely, you learn a lot your first 100. I made a lot of rookie mistakes.
Yep.
Starting caffeine at 10 a.m. Just dumb stuff like that. So I dialed in a lot more of those mistakes. And so, you learn
a lot in that first one. Then you learn even more on your first finish. And then you kind of pick up this bug that's dude, I can do better. My training, you start locking in and dialing in everything, right?
1,000%. Even in real time as it's happening, I'm like, oh, that was stupid. That was a mistake. Okay, note for later. Don't do that again. Which I love. I love that aspect of it.
Yeah. So then this year in April, end of April, you run Canyons 100, which ended up being purchased by UTMB.
Yes.
Top 10 male, top 10 female get tickets to UTMB.
Yes.
The Super Bowl of ultras. Yes. Everyone's goal, I shouldn't say everyone.
Yeah.
Many, many people are dying to go to UTMB and get in there, right? You placed 10th.
Yeah.
In the female side the 100 miler. What was that experience like?
It's going to sound boring. I actually didn't even know the top 10. I went to that race just thinking I was going to get my stones or tickets, whatever they call them. I can't remember.
Stones,
they changed the name.
Stones
for the lottery. Like that was my idea of it. So I didn't know my placement. I didn't know anything the whole time because I was just there to like check it off the list, get my stones and be done. My pacer, Jen Lambert, who like always paces me, especially those last sections because she's just amazing. I guess she had been texting people and so she kind of knew where I was placed. And then it was the last 9 or 10 miles of that. She was like, how are you feeling emotionally? And I was like, because I do have a rule. No one's allowed to ask me how I'm feeling during a race. That's just something that I can't like even deal with. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't know. I'm tired. Like, I've got 10 miles left. Like whatever.
I've done 90 miles.
Yeah. It's like at this point, like, let's just be done. She's like, well, I'm just going to tell you this. You're in 10th. The top 10 get a ticket to UTMB. And of course, at this point, like I'm like about to start crying. She's like, don't cry. Like we still have to finish. She's like, you've got a good lead. We just need to like do it. And so of course, at that point, I'm like wide awake because that's motivation.
Yeah.
So yeah, then we finished strong. Like we get that last placement, which I'm super grateful for. Obviously, I got to go to UTMB this year. But yeah, it was not expected. But like I said, like this is the first year that I feel like I'm kind of finding some footing in all of this. So it was amazing and kind of surreal, honestly.
I mean, I would say more than finding your footing. Like I think you're like figuring this out and you're figuring out like I'm pretty good at this. Like I'm enjoying it. It's good for my soul. Like I love it. But like I'm pretty good at it, right?
Yeah.
And so
for sure.
You have this breakthrough, which I think it kind of happened like at Ute because you finished your first one. And
a little bit, yeah.
Third, and it's like, oh, I won the female division. I took third overall. Like, and then Canyon, like that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the competition there is insane.
Yep.
Because most people, unlike you, know that there's a ticket.
There's a ticket there.
It's a free ticket to like the biggest race in the world.
I know.
In the world.
Yeah.
So you end up just like falling into that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to like give the impression that I'm not trying when I'm out there too, to be fair. Like I definitely go in with goals and I want to push my hardest for me. So I don't want to give a false impression that I'm just like out there like dancing.
No, you're out there competing. Yeah. You are a competitor for sure. Even if it's just with yourself. Yeah. But also with the field. But you weren't going there going like, I have to get this ticket. I want to get this ticket. You didn't even know it existed.
I didn't even know it existed. Yeah. At that point.
So you hit that. And then you're like, oh, cool. Like 2024, next year, I'll do UTMB. That'll be awesome. And then what happened?
So they gave us tickets for 2023 and 2024. So at first, actually, I wasn't going to go this year. It was kind of a last minute thing because it was like 6 weeks out from Moab. And I didn't know, I don't know, like there's logistics there. Like it's not exactly the course that is super great for that. I think it actually ended up being a good final like training run. But yeah, I decided to go mostly for like beta for next year because I do want to train more specifically for that course next year. Yeah. Is literally the opposite of the type of course at Moab. Like super techie, super steep, up and down, up and down, up and down. So,
yeah. So tons of vert, tons of climbing at UTMB. I think most people listening who are runners know that course is tough. It's 32 or 33,000 feet, something like that, right?
Yeah, it's like 33,000 feet, 111 miles. Like it's no joke.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. And you finished this year in like...
It was 35 hours.
35, okay.
And I'll just give the caveat that I did something to my left ankle, which this was kind of like a concern going into Moab too. I did something to my left ankle and it started to swell at like mile 40. It did something to it at mile 40. By mile 45, I was like, I don't think this is going away. And so I ran 70 miles of that on a swollen ankle that was just progressively getting worse. But I didn't take any pain meds until... I think it was like the last 25 miles because I wanted to make sure it's like, is this something I should be concerned. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're kind of
do I
making
wanna
those
mask
calculations.
the pain, or do I want to like
I want to
pull out
know
and-
because Moab was still my number one goal. So I didn't want to do anything that I felt like was going to be long term.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel like it in the moment.
Yeah. So you end up using UTMB. I mean, first of all, it's an incredible vacation to Europe.
Oh yeah,
in the most beautiful
amazing.
part of the world.
Yeah.
But it's also like a training race, if you
Yeah,
will. Right?
I kind of used it
wasn't like
for
your A
that.
race. All year long, Moab 240 was like eye on the prize. That's my A race all year.
For sure. That was everything that I did this year. Because I honestly didn't do a ton of crazy vert. I did vert, obviously, but a lot of it was just that runnable turnover with just gradual ups and downs. Because I knew that the majority of Moab was going to be runnable. And then I needed to have good turnover for long periods of time on fatigued legs. And so every day was just kind of a grind of going out, which, you know, like Monday and Tuesday is fine. By the time you hit like Friday and Saturday of still going out and doing the same thing over and over and over, it's, I don't know. I think it pays off though.
Yeah. Forcing yourself to run the gradual runnable stuff, undulated up and down.
Yep.
But forcing yourself to like, no, this is like runnable.
Yep. Yeah. And I didn't put a lot of pressure. It was mostly just time on my feet. Like I didn't have a super strategy for things. It was just like, okay, I'm just going out for 2.5 hours. I don't know what that looks like mileage wise, but I know that I'm not allowed to get back in my car until I've been out here for 2.5 hours. So whether that's walking or running, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You're setting a time limit of I'm going to be on my feet.
Time on my feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that we've given the listeners a little history lesson of last 12 months, I want to go back to like, you volunteered at the Moab 240 in 2022.
Yes.
And there must have been something that happened there emotionally or something that you saw that was like, I want to compete in this race.
For sure.
Because at that point, you'd only done 100.
Yeah.
And you jumped to like, I'm going to volunteer, which is awesome. We need more and more volunteers.
Yeah,
it's so rad that you volunteered there.
Yeah, 1000%.
And something hit you. Like what? Did something happen at that race that was like, or was it just like gradual over like the 2 days of volunteering?
Yeah, so the delusional side of me, it's interesting. So UTMB and Moab were both the two races that were like my dream races. The fact that I got to do them both this year is still mind-blowing to me. Moab 240, before I had even ever run my first 50-mile race, I'm sitting there thinking, I like hear about this race. I'm reading about it. I love Moab. Like I am a new trail runner. I've only been doing this a few years. Definitely new on the ultra scene, but I've spent a lot of time in Moab on those early trail days. I decided that I was going to do that race. Like I said it out loud, semi-joking, semi-serious, like, oh yeah, I'm going to do Moab 240 one day. But in the back of my brain, like that's been the goal for a long time. I didn't know when. I knew that I had to like build a base. But when I went down to volunteer last year, it was immediate. It was even before the race started. I pull up. So I volunteered at the Island Aid Station. That's like mile, I think like 80, 82, maybe 85. I don't know. Somewhere in the 80s.
So you're there at night.
Yeah. So you're there. So I pull up, it's like sunset and I'm just looking at the course. We're getting things prepped, right, for the runners that are going to be coming through in a few hours. And I don't know. I don't even really know what it was, but I'm just like looking at it and I could just like envision myself running through there as some, you know, like I could just feel it. And I was like, okay, like next year's my year. I don't know why, but I'm feeling it very strongly. I feel like I just kind of lean into my gut a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so when something feels like it's the right timing, then I'll go for it. And it felt like it was the right time. Like I felt like I had done the work at this point to build a base. I knew that I would be fine training for the following year. Like once I decide I want to do something, I'm pretty disciplined.
So then you put in for the lottery.
I put in for the lottery in January.
I was going to say December, January. So you put in for the lottery, draw out, and in February, I think it was. No,
it's in January.
January.
I think you put in like the first week in January, and then they draw. I think maybe the last
right
week.
after.
Yeah.
So they draw a lottery. You draw out, and you're like, right, that's it. This is my year. The next 10 months of training.
I literally like said like, this is it. This is my year. Like, I'm not doing anything else super big this year, just in general, whether that's running or like personal project, like whatever it is. This is kind of putting all of my eggs in this basket this year.
Okay. So now we got you in the race, and you're
I'm
like,
there.
I'm there,
and
there,
I'm
baby.
like crying. I actually have a video that I took like when I opened the email, I saw that I got in, and I like immediately burst into tears. I pull out my phone and I like record this like video of just how I was feeling in the moment. I'm like bawling, and no one's ever seen it. I mean, maybe at some point someone will see it, but it's more just like, I just wanted to remember how that felt, right? So like, okay, like it's going to happen. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this.
So let's talk about the preparation then going into. So UTMB ends up being, this dream race you get to accomplish, but it's not your A race, and it's kind of perfect timing for training wise.
Kind of is,
like you log all the miles, all the vert. You take your body through the night, and then
because we had to do 2 nights because it starts at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So you're out there for 2 nights.
So 2 nights for you. So you're ready to go, like physically, mentally, like you're ready to go.
Yeah, it was definitely in the confidence bank. It was like perfect timing. And then you're not allowed pacers in that. You know what I mean? Like there were a few things I'm like, okay, like, yeah, I can do this.
You're not allowed pacers at UTMB. Yeah.
You can have crew, but not pacers.
Yep. So you're just logging the nights by yourself.
Which was kind of good for me personally. Like I felt like I needed that.
Because you'd always had Jen with you.
Like she's always kind of, and I still feel this way, but she just can push me really hard right there.
You get to go do it by yourself, and you learn new things and
it was
all of that, right? You grow in a different way by doing it by yourself. So take me into race day Moab. Like you toe the line, you're prepared. Like how have you strategized? I'm a big strategy guy in the races. Like that's like why one of the big reasons why I love it.
Yeah.
So what was the strategy going in on? I'm going to have a pacer at this point. I have a crew. I'm targeting this time. Like what was your mindset going in?
It's kind of the same with everything. So I like put everything in a spreadsheet, and mostly for crew, just so they can kind of figure out roughly where I'm going to be when. Yeah, I mean, I think this was the first time that I was pretty strategic on where I place pacers and things like that, just knowing like, okay, I know I'm going to want Jen at the end. I know I'm going to want this person here and there. So I was a little bit more strategic this time with that. I had a time goal in mind. If I'm being completely transparent, I did want to podium. I was which also maybe sounds delusional. It's like your first 200, you don't know how that's going to turn out. And I don't think I was like vocal about it to everyone, but I was vocal about it with people close in my life and my team, and that I wanted a podium. And it wasn't that I want to win. It was just, I want to be on the podium. Like I felt like I had worked really hard, trained really hard. I felt like I was capable. I am not a fast runner, but I can go a long time. I think that's the only strength that I have. And I think that's why I'm actually really excited to kind of like do more of these 200s, because I feel like I'm more built for that. So the strategy was basically to be consistent, keep turnover consistent. I kind of know my paces where I'm not pushing extremely hard, that's sustainable for like flats and for different grades. And I'd kind of calculated all of that. I knew that I was going to have to sleep. I wanted to get some of that sleep on the front end. I had talked to people about that. The strategy for sleep was basically, if you feel like you can fall asleep in like 2 seconds, that's when you need to sleep. Like, don't necessarily plan where you're going to, just when it hits. And so that was kind of my plan for sleep. Nutrition is always the same. I use a liquid calorie nutrition, and that's kind of my base. I do a bottle an hour of that, and that gives me like a base of 260 calories. And then I try to eat food in addition to that. So it was kind of like, eat as much as you can at the aid stations, drink your stuff while you're out, and then replenish with more extra like I don't like that. It all sounds like dumb, but you have to figure out how your body works in these situations. And I don't generally have a lot of issues with my stomach. Like I'm kind of fortunate in that way.
Yeah.
I don't have to fight a lot of that. And then I think for me, two of the biggest things for me when I go out for stuff like this, I'm not super competitive. I know that probably doesn't sound accurate. I'm very competitive with myself. Like I will set a goal for myself. But I didn't want to know where my placement was. Like when I'm out running, I don't want to know where I'm at. If people in the course try to tell me, I tell them not to tell me. Like I just don't want to know. Because I don't want it in my head. I don't want the pressure from anyone. And then I don't like it when people ask me how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I was like, you can ask me what I need. You can ask me if there's something you can do. Because if there's a problem, I'll tell you. Like I'll be vocal, but I don't put a lot of weight into any one feeling, whether it's like I feel super good right now or I feel really shitty right now. It doesn't matter because if I just don't think about it and just move on, that feeling will disappear within a mile or two anyway, and it's going to be a different feeling.
Especially the how are you feeling when you're just logging that many hours and miles. Like, dude, you know how I could answer that in a really negative way and then put me in a bad spot mentally.
That's exactly
for a long time.
I don't want any
Otherwise, I'm like,
negativity.
I feel great. I feel good. And you're like, dude, no, you don't. You're 140 miles in. Like, there's only one way to answer that, so don't ask me.
I know.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and so, like, it's not, I didn't know who was going to be in the race. Like, I don't do any of that. I don't care. I wasn't researching who was going to be there. I wasn't tracking in real time who was there. I didn't even know where I was placed, what was going on. Like, I don't know. Like, for me, I just don't want any of that because I also am kind of woo-woo and I want to just have my own, like, experience just as a human, like, out there doing my thing.
But you had to have known where you were as you're behind Sally, you pass Sally, leading, like you're leading.
Yeah. Like, I mean, at some point it is obvious, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know my placement for that until I passed Sally.
Which you didn't know where you were until you're like, oh my gosh, that's Sally McRae.
Yeah.
And like everyone in the ultra scene knows who Sally is.
Yeah.
Like she's podium, she's won races, she's a big deal in that distance for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Like and sponsors and Nike and all this stuff. Yeah. So when you come up on Sally, what is that moment like for you?
This is very interesting and funny, and I'm always like, oh man, what do you say? Like, I don't even know, because it doesn't matter.
What was the exchange like, though? Like, did you run with her and chat, or was it like...
No, so the first time that I passed her was at mile, like, 75-ish, and she was off the trail, so I don't know if she was going to the bathroom or something, but her pacer was kind of closer by, so it was just kind of like, hey, like,
that was it.
Quick hi to the pacer. And I didn't, this is really stupid on my part too. I didn't actually know that was Sally until after we passed and my pacer was like, so that was Sally. And I was like, wait, what? Like, for me, because I didn't see her, like I don't know, this is so stupid. I didn't really know. Like, and I didn't want to know. Like when people were trying to tell me where I was at, I didn't want to know. But then I also knew, like, I was already planning on sleeping at the next aid station. So I was like, okay, well, she'll pass me at the next aid station and I'll never see her again. Because in my brain, I'm like, Sally, like, she's next level. I am just me. And that's probably the last I'm ever going to see her. So it has been interesting. I don't even know. So I actually listened to Sally's podcast about this whole experience as well recently, like a couple days ago. I had a friend send it to me. And it was interesting because I guess she was in the Indian Creek aid station when I came in. I didn't know. I didn't know she was there. I didn't know that I was that close. I didn't know any of that until, and I think my crew, they know my personality, so they probably knew that I didn't want to know, and they're not saying anything. They're just letting me like show up, be excited, do my thing, and then move on. So she ends up passing me. I take a nap at that aid station, the island aid station.
At what mile is that? 80?
That's like 80, 82, somewhere in that 80s, neighborhood. And I knew that was going to happen. I was just pumped that I even did it once. Like, I know that sounds stupid, but for me, I was like, oh man, like that's crazy. Like I even did that once. Yeah. Like, cause I'm just out there running my own race. I feel like I'm trying to be smart and like keep it at a sustainable pace and all of that. So I take my nap, for like 45 minutes to an hour-ish probably, and eat some food and get out. Also, I should note that I had major issues with my feet. So I started getting blisters at mile 16. And then at every aid station from 16 up until like the end, especially on the front end, I was getting like medic care for my feet, which I don't normally have a lot of issues.
Especially at 16. Like what?
I think.
Do you know why that happened?
I have a theory.
Okay, let's hear it. Yeah.
I don't normally get a lot of blisters, but I did get some at UTMB. And I think that my skin had not had enough time to like heal properly. And then I think it was like a domino effect. Like once some were getting taped, then the tape was like causing issues on the other. And so especially over that mileage, it was just like this domino effect of like, by the time the race was done, every single toe on both feet were taped and blistered. Like it was insane, which I've never had to deal with before.
Yeah, now I know I know a lot of people in 200s, not so much in the hundreds, but when they go to the 200 distance, they wrap every toe pre-race.
Yeah.
Did you do that?
No, and I should have.
Is that a new move for you next time?
I think so. Like I would like to figure that piece out because I think that cost me a lot of time. And plus, I was just like, I don't even know how to deal with this because I've never had this many issues with my feet before in a race. So that was a whole other component that I was trying to deal with in real time. So I would do some of that differently for sure. But just information for next time, right?
Yeah. Hey,
logging that away for next time.
Baby. Learned. Lesson learned.
So then we leave. I have my pacer, obviously, that I picked up at Indian Creek, and that first pacer has to do like 47 miles. Like it's a big chunk. So make sure you like your pacer.
Take someone who doesn't annoy you.
Make sure you have some. No, I loved my pacer. So then we pass Sally again at mile like 111-ish, somewhere at least like it was somewhere in that section right before that Shea Mountain aid station.
And what was that exchange like? Because this one, she's not off in the woods or at an aid station.
No,
like, she's on the trail.
She's on the trail. There wasn't much of an exchange. It was like, hey, good job, and then just moved on. And maybe, I don't know. I get so awkward in those situations because I don't ever know like if someone wants to talk. You know what I mean? Like
there's so many different ways to approach it because like if you ran track or cross country or even if you run road miles, it's like when you pass someone, it's like this whole strategy of like this burst of energy and it's like you go even faster so that it like mentally puts them in a place of like, oh, I'm never going to catch them.
I know.
But in ultra.
I'm not that calculated.
But like in a 200, it's like.
It's not.
Do you hang out and run a couple miles together?
Because you totally could.
And
I think too, in my brain, this is all new territory. I view Sally as this like mega athlete that I have so much respect for. I'm like, oh man, like, do I fangirl out? You know what I mean? Like,
well, no, it's like I'm a starting quarterback and I can't believe I'm playing against Tom Brady. This is crazy. I've looked at I've looked at him for the last how many years, and I'm on the same field as Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Like, that's a similar...
It's a similar thing. Like, I definitely, like, didn't even... Because at this point, I do know who she is, like, from, unlike the first time. And so... there was like this weird like, man, like, do I say something? Do I not say something? Do we walk a few minutes together? I think in hindsight, I kind of wish that I had been like more confident to do that. I don't know.
Like, how are you? Like, what's up? Good job.
Yeah, like I just want to say hi. I just want to meet you. Yeah. Like, and so I don't know. Didn't happen. It was just one of those like, good job.
Yeah.
And then just move on.
Okay, so at what point was the last time she passed you and you didn't see her till finish?
Yeah. So that was Road 46 aid station. So that's, I could be wrong on my mileage here. I feel like that's got to be around 160 miles in, maybe something like that. That's where she came in when I was there and then left before I did. I was definitely working through some stuff at that point, like emotionally, not even physically. I think like that was the biggest surprise for me with this is physically I felt pretty good the whole time. Like my stomach was good. I felt like my body held up for the most part. The only physical issue that really came into play that I had a hard time with was my respiratory system. Like I started coughing a lot. I was coughing up blood from Pole Canyon to the finish. And then especially those last like 50 miles, my breathing was so shallow. Like I felt like I just like really couldn't breathe for the most part.
You couldn't get a big deep.
Yeah, I couldn't, or else I would just start coughing. And that was kind of frustrating at the end because I felt like my legs were fine and I could run faster if I could just let my heart rate get up and actually breathe. And
now the course is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's, desert. Is it like dusty and exposed? So you end up taking in dust?
Yeah. And not so much the first day because it rained the night before. Oh, so that was fortunate. Nice. Yeah. But by the time you're into day 2 or 3, I mean, that rain, it's all dried out. Yeah, it was definitely very dusty. And I think for me, I get that way in 100 miler. The difference is that you can kind of push through and it's not too bad.
When it really starts to affect you, you're done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, because when I started coughing up blood was at Pole Canyon, and I think that's like mile 175, 180, which, I mean, you're getting close to the end, but you still have a lot of hours. Like, you still have a lot. And so, but I would have never hit that point in 100 miler. So this is also new territory.
Yeah.
That I'm like, I'm coughing up blood. Should I be concerned? It'll be fine. We'll deal with it later.
I'm almost there in 12 more hours.
I was like, I'll be done this time tomorrow.
I got one more night and then a morning and I'll be done.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so incredibly stupid.
So you end up going through 3 nights?
Yeah, 3 nights. Because I finished, I think, around 4:30, 4:45 on Tuesday morning.
Just as the sun is on. A couple
almost,
hours coming up.
Yeah.
So
3 nights.
Let's jump back to the sleep strategy, because that's always something I enjoy talking about as I prepare for
have yours.
My first big race. But a lot of people that listen are like, what's the strategy? Like, what do you do? And I love what you said. And I believe that's the same way. If you can't fall asleep instantly, you're just wasting time tossing and turning and laying there.
And you're probably getting in your head as well, would be my guess. I don't know, because I didn't do that. If I couldn't fall asleep, then I wasn't going to hang out.
So how much time did you budget for sleep, and what did you end up doing? Do you know?
That's a good question. I actually have logs that I had my crew keep, and I haven't actually reviewed them. So my numbers may be a little bit off. I budgeted 5 to 6 hours. From what in my memory, which who knows how accurate that is in real time, I think I slept around 4, maybe 4.5 total, like cumulatively with everything. So I'd slept less than what I thought, which I kind of wonder too. I don't know. Like, I would like to get to a point where I need even less than that.
That's what I was going to ask, is now that you've done it once, do you feel like that was the right amount? You could do less if you do some other adaptation things, like whether it's caffeine or when you sleep or what. Like, what if you do Moab again? Like, how do you use that knowledge and experience to improve your time or your experience?
And it's hard to say, right? Because once again, this is all new. I think the next time what I would like to play with is maybe getting like an hour and a half chunk kind of in that towards the end of that first 100 miles, towards the end of that, to get in like a good REM cycle, like to get in the nitty gritty, like get in a good REM cycle, like really get a lot of pack for my punch there. And then at that point, everything post that, just kind of that 15-minute trail nap.
Yeah.
I think that in my brain, I was doing these like 30 to 45-minute naps, which was fine, but I think it was just enough to get me going, but not enough to sustain super long. So I almost feel like one super solid hour and a half, maybe a couple 15 minutes later, if I need it.
Yeah.
But those just be on the trail. Like if I'm so tired that I can't move, lay down, sleep for 15, and then get up and go.
So you feel like you could trim an hour and a half to 2 hours off your sleep time.
I mean, I would like to see. Who knows?
And the crazy thing about it is like every race day, your body is just a different. Like, you don't know how you're going to respond.
Yeah, 1,000%.
So, like, you're going into it going, oh, yeah, last time I did this, so this time I can do that. And it's not that easy.
Oh, it never is. I don't know how you are. I've never had even a 100-miler be a replica of what, like, things that sounded good food-wise. I'm like, oh, I am set. I've got all of the things that worked last time. And then I think about those things in the race, and I'm like, I cannot eat that. I will vomit. Like,
that's not going to work today.
Yeah, no, I've never been able to replicate anything. So it's probably also not accurate, me calculating all these things for the next 200, and it will be a completely different race.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. So back into the race now. So you and Sally have leapfrogged first, second here and there. At some point, you kind of lose track of her, which is around mile 100 and whatever.
Yeah, whatever that is. I think like 140. Road 46, I think, is around 160 miles in. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like it's around 160 miles in. And then so that's when I got passed by Sally at that point.
And that was kind of it there. Mm-hmm. But then at some point, now you're like, your feet are hurting. I mean, you're everything hurts because you're all the way into this race. You're 180 or 200 miles in, and then you get past F2, and now you're running F3.
Yes.
So, when does that happen? What's that exchange like?
Okay. So for that happened almost at Pole Canyon. So I saw, which once again, I don't know where anyone is. I'm not sure. I'm sure my team is tracking. I'm sure they know where everyone is. I never knew where Ann was or who was behind me, how far. So about the time that I'm leaving Pole Canyon, once again, I think that's around mile like between 175 and 180 something, like somewhere in that neighborhood. When I'm leaving Pole Canyon, she's coming in. She's looking really good. The exchange honestly was super nice. It was just like, hey, good job. Like, but like actually looking at each other, eye contact, like, you're killing it. Good job. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it was super pleasant. It was good. And then my pacer and we take off, and I honestly, this is probably like the second night for me was really like mentally, I was out of it. Mm-hmm. The first night wasn't that bad. And the last night, for whatever reason, which you would think you'd be more crazy that third night. For me, I was a lot more mentally with it that third night and dialed. I don't know. I feel like she passed me pretty quickly. And I don't know exactly when that was, but definitely within a few, I don't know, miles of Pole Canyon. Mm-hmm. Like, if it wasn't like within a couple of hours, I'm pretty sure she passed me.
It was hard to track exactly all these moments from the comfort of my own home while you're suffering.
Well,
but
because
it was
none of that is like, those pings are kind of coming in weird sometimes.
Yeah. So do you end up ever passing her again? When she passes you, that's kind of, you remain in third, or do you pass her?
Well, there was a weird situation. So that happens in the middle of the night, right? Who knows? I don't even know what time it is at this point. It's dark outside. There's either dark or light.
We know that it's nighttime.
Yes, it's nighttime.
Perfect.
There's dark and light. And so it's dark. This happens. I don't see Anne again until apparently at some point she had gone off trail, and I don't know exactly what happened, but I don't know if she made it all the way to Geyser Pass aid station, or if they told her before she came in. Basically, she was going to have to backtrack a certain section of that trail and then go back. I don't actually even know how many miles that ended up being for her. So I didn't see her again until she was coming back. And of course, it's like morning at this point. And in my brain, I'm like, wait, she's coming back. Like, where am I? Like, it was one of those moments of like, oh, shoot. Like, you're coming this way. I'm going this way. Am I off trail? Because you don't see, like, at this point, like, you're not seeing a lot of people.
You don't see anyone.
You don't see anyone.
Yeah.
Like, and so I saw her, and the first thing she said to me, she was just like, "You're not going the wrong way." And I was like,
that was nice of her.
Because she probably saw my face, and I was probably just like, "Oh shoot, like what is going on?" And she's like, "You're not going the wrong way," and I was like, "Oh," and she was like, "I got off trail. They told me," and I don't know if I was just so emotional, but like genuinely, I felt bad because we've all done this where we've made a wrong turn, and it is so frustrating.
Yep.
And it's just more mileage. And when you're running that many miles, you do not want to be doing more mileage anyway.
No.
I genuinely felt bad. And I just like immediately burst into tears. And like, I'm so emotional for her because I just felt bad. And I like asked her, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And I don't even know, I get socially awkward sometimes. And I'm like, "Can I give you a hug?" And she, I don't even know what she was thinking. I don't even want to like project what she was probably thinking. Probably like, this girl's crazy. But she let me hug her, so that was nice. But I like gave her a hug.
That hug was for you.
It probably, like, honestly, it was for me because I just felt like so emotional.
Can you hug
about
me?
It.
Is what you meant to say.
Yeah, like hug me because I need it. Truly, probably. And so, yeah, so that exchange was super nice. I was like, good job, blah, blah, blah. Same, like it was just super sweet, I felt like, at least on my end. That's how I have it processed. And then I continue on. I don't know how far we are from the next aid station, but not too far at that point. I think we're within like a couple miles, maybe less. Like we're pretty close. So we go into that aid station. She goes back out to whatever point she's supposed to and turns around. She comes back into that aid station while I'm still there because I'm hanging out there for a while. I take, I know Ben Light because I know he's been on the podcast. He had a nice little setup in his vehicle, like his little van thing.
Yeah, his truck.
Yeah.
Camper deal.
Yeah. So he's got like the Normatex in there and a fan going because I wanted to take a nap for like 45 minutes. And so they're like, "Great, you're going to take a nap, but you're also going to hop in these Normatex and sleep while you're in them," which I wasn't expecting. Super grateful for. And it was nice too. Like it was quiet. It was cool. So I ate a bunch of food, went in, took a nap. Cause I mean, at that point, like I know I'm going to get past, I don't know. Like for me, it was like my goal with all of this was to be on the podium. I'm not here to just completely destroy myself. I'm learning. I'm trying to figure things out. I know for me, I needed a little bit of a reset. And so I take a 45-minute nap. I'm in these Normatex. I get up. They address all of the blisters, pop a bunch more blisters, make sure everything's retaped and good to go. And then we take off. And then at that point, I'm always in third. I don't know where anyone is, even the person behind me or ahead of me, until the last, like, 17 miles. Like it's never talked about. Like And you're not seeing a lot of people at this point. Like, you're seeing a few guys here and there. Like, either you're passing them or maybe some are passing you. And then at that point, my pacer, Jen, my little...
Bring it home, Jen.
Yeah, bring it home, Jen. She is my magic. She obviously was paying attention. I don't know if she was tracking it or if she was getting messages from my crew. They obviously know what's going on. I'm kind of in a rough spot at this point because, especially those last 40 miles, I'm not able to talk a ton because, like, I can barely talk. I can barely breathe, honestly. Coughing up a ton of blood. It was kind of rough, like, in that part of it. My legs felt good. Everything else felt good. Mentally, I felt very, like, dialed.
Like, you were, like, sharp your third
I was
night.
very sharp. I could hold a conversation. I knew exactly what was going on. I could calculate things. Like, I was good mentally, physically, but yeah, not so much with the respiratory system. Like, so that was failing me.
You ultimately finish in the 4 or 5 a.m., whatever it is, right? 88 something hours.
Yeah.
Going into it, what was your projected, like, spreadsheet finish time?
My projected spreadsheet finish time, I think I had myself finishing. So the way that I had it calculated, I think I had myself running for 76 hours, knowing that I was going to have, like, aid station time and naps built in. And I didn't know what that was going to look like. So in my brain, it was like, okay, running time, roughly around 76 hours, probably 5 to 6 hours for sleep. And so I felt like I was a little over probably what I projected by an hour or two.
Really
but I was
close.
Pretty accurate, I think, for the most part.
That's very accurate, especially for your first 200, which is a 240.
Right, because how do you even start calculating anything over 100 miles?
You're like, I don't know how long I'll be at that aid station.
Yeah.
15 minutes or 50.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
So I felt like my projections were pretty close with the running time and the sleeping time and everything else. So, I mean, I was happy with it. And there was a moment that last, like, I think about 17 miles left. Jen, like, turned around. She's like, okay, like, basically, like, I know you don't like knowing this stuff, but I'm just going to tell you so you can make the choice. She's like, the girl ahead of you is about 3 miles ahead of you. The girl behind you is about 3.5 miles behind you. Do you want to try to push? And she did tell me where Sally was too. And I can't remember where she was in all of this. But she was like, do you want to try to push and catch? Do you want to lay down and look at the stars and, like, chill? Like, what do you want this next 17 miles to look like? And I just basically told her at that point, I'm like, look, my lungs are not going to allow me to go super, super fast at this point. Like, even though physically I felt like I could push, maybe not crazy fast, but another 2 to 3 minutes per mile faster. Like, not per mile, but per, yeah. Like, I felt like I could probably increase my pace by 2 to 3 minutes per mile. But, like, my lungs were not going to allow that. And so I was like, basically, this is what I want at this point. I want to be on the podium. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't happen, but I do want to be on the podium. So we don't have to catch anyone, but I do want to make sure that I don't get caught. And so let's push hard, continue. And that kind of became the goal.
Yeah. And just a steady.
Like, we don't necessarily need to close the gap. If we do, great. But
let's not give it up either.
But we don't want to give up this placement. Like, we've worked so hard for it at this point. And that was kind of always the goal, was to try to finish top 3. And at that point, it was very doable. And so that was like the first actual conversation I had about placement and what I wanted those miles to look like. And then that was basically our strategy. It was like, okay, like, we're just going to be consistent. We're going to make sure we don't get closed in on and finish.
And just run it out. So looking back on your pace, what pace you're supposed to do, when you can push, how long you can stay at aid stations, that kind of thing for 100. Going into your first 200, how did you manage pace? Like, I'm going to try to go quite a bit slower than I think I should be going? Or is it like, I'm just going to go, if I feel good, I'm going to go?
A kind of a combo, honestly. I did it more effort based. I mean, obviously I'm like checking my heart rate a little bit here and there, but it's mostly I am only going to push to a percent that I feel like is sustainable. Like if I am having a hard time holding a conversation, then I shouldn't be going that fast. Um, But I mean, I don't know how you are. Like for me, I kind of know what those paces are and they stay pretty consistent. Like I
Yeah.
know that if I'm going to be on flat, I can maintain between like a 10 and a half to a 12 and a half in a conversation pace. If I'm going up a certain grade, if it's super steep, then, maybe I'm pushing for this. If it's runnable up, like, and I say, like, I have a friend that always says everything's shuffleable. And like, in the sense that like, yeah, maybe you're not running up, but can you like do a shuffle at like a 14-minute? And is that sustainable?
Versus a power hike might be 15, 16.
That's the thing. Like a power hike may be just a few minutes slower, but if you could kind of like shuffle it,
that adds up.
Yeah. And so that's kind of my mode. Like I will try to either run or shuffle for the most part. If I do need to like walk, obviously I'm going to. If I need a power hike, I'm going to.
And you knew you could do that on this course because it's 240 miles.
Right.
What did your watch clock as vert over that time?
I think I came in, my watch, because they say I think 33, and everyone's watches are different, but I think my watch clocked around 32.
Okay.
So it was pretty close.
So
but
32,
it was about
1,000.
But
how much actual climbing was there that you would consider climbing?
Yeah, that I would consider climbing. That's a good question. I felt like there were probably 4 different sections, maybe. Like definitely up to Shea, up to Pole Canyon. That's a hike. And then there on that front end, well, because, okay, so climbing up to the Shea Mountain aid station, that's a pretty long climb. You've got a couple of like long climbs in there. And then also it's kind of broken up into 2 long climbs if my memory serves correctly. Because you do have some climbing on the front end, not a lot. Like it's pretty runnable climbing, I think. But you've got like a couple big pushes up to Shea, and then going up Shea Mountain is another climb. And then going up to Pole Canyon was another climb. And I remember thinking like in my brain, I was like, okay, that's kind of the last climb. But you do climb going out of Geyser Pass too. And they say it's only 1,600 feet, and I'm sure it is, but man, it did not feel like that at 200 miles in.
Yeah, I was going to say at 200 miles in, it probably feels like 4,000.
I remember asking my pacer, I'm like, wait, how much? Because you're just on a road. So you're just going up and up and up. And I'm like, wait, how much of this do we have? Like, are we ever going to be done with this? Because I think in my brain, I was like, once I get to Geyser, because the way that if you look at the elevation profile, it's like all downhill, baby.
All down here from here. Yeah, this is easy.
It's not true.
Yeah.
It is not true because you definitely have like another big climb. And then it's kind of some up and downs for a little bit. I feel like you're not really truly descending completely until that last like 20-ish miles.
Yeah.
And so there's like that 20-mile section that they say is down, but it is not all down.
Yeah. Hey, I love the breakdown. I just love hearing the whole story of like this and then that and then the sleep and then, my feet and all that stuff is so interesting to me.
Yes.
And hopefully to the listeners that are hearing are like, such an incredible journey.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
The journey of 3 days of being out there in the desert and with a pacer and so many miles by yourself.
Yep.
What did you learn about yourself in that race? Like if you could just like summarize it and be like, I learned this about myself.
Oh man, that is a hard question. It's a lot of time.
If you could just one takeaway.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I've thought about it. My biggest takeaway with all of this is honestly, like it's such a cliche, but it's just more compassion for humanity. Like, I think at the end of the day, physical things, they're hard. That's awesome. I love pushing myself physically. But oh man, just the way that my crew is there and the volunteers and all of the love, like it is palpable, the energy that you have, especially in something like this where it's so long, you're so sleep deprived, you're getting so much care. Like I'm not the type of person that really relies a lot on people, especially like emotionally and all of these other things. But to feel that, right? Like you feel it at the aid stations and you come back at the end and you just have all of these messages from people, I mean, all over the world that don't even know you, that were pulling for you and sending messages. And yeah, it just kind of like brought that to the forefront of my brain of like, that relationships, people, like that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Like,
and
I don't know.
you have one son.
Yes, I have one son.
Hollis.
Hollis
is how old?
9.
I was gonna say 10. Okay,
Hollis almost 10. Yeah, well, not really. I guess in 6 months.
Okay,
yeah.
Hollis is 9 and a half. He's counting the days, and apparently you are as well.
Always.
So Hollis is 9. He's your pride and joy, everything that means everything to you in your life.
1000%.
If I know anything about you, he is your everything.
Yes.
How does your running and dedication to running, what is that teaching him? What is he seeing that about his mom?
Yeah, I love that question. I think a few things. Obviously, he's seeing dedication. He sees, I mean, he's with me. I get up and go run every morning. He's asleep. He usually wakes up towards the end of my run. He hops on his little watch and he calls me to let me know that he's up. You know, I'm home within probably 30, 40 minutes of the time that he wakes up. But he sees the dedication to that. And now it's interesting. And he's seen it for years, right? Like that I go out and do this thing and it's very important. He sees the fruits of it in the sense that like, yeah, now it's pretty cool because I'm going to these races and things are happening, and he actually loves that aspect. But then he loves all of my running friends. He loves going to races and that community. I think it's like a bunch of things. I think it's like commitment and doing something hard and staying consistent and look what happens. And then also these type of things can bring so many good people into your life, and that's amazing. And he gets to feel that. He sees it obviously from my perspective, but he also gets to be a participant, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Like, so
I imagine he, like a lot of kids and children who watch their parents, you know, mine are the same way, watch me accomplish these things with running, and the way their eyes light up, or the way they speak about it. Do you hear him talking about like his superhero mom and what she can do?
Yeah, 1000%. I am fortunate to have a son who actually thinks I'm cool. I don't know if a lot of parents have that, but Hollis actually thinks I'm cool. He's very complimentary. He tells me all the time, and I know that he brags about it, like, to people in the world, which is also insane to me. Like, even when I was running UTMB, he said that he's like, oh, Mom, I was like telling everyone at school, like, my mom is in France right now and she's running 100 miles. I'm like thinking like, these kids are probably like, what? Like, I don't even understand what you're talking about right now. But he is super proud, and he will say it frequently that, Mom, you ran 240 miles. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like he does think about it, and he gets excited about it even for him, where he is excited to come pace me at some point. And he's excited to come crew me, and he wants to come to France next year and be part of my crew. And I'm like, yeah, 1000%. Let's do it.
So cool.
So yeah, no, he does light up and he gets super pumped and he talks about it all the time. He's very complimentary. And I think that's awesome because at the end of the day, I like showing him that if you make a goal and you are consistent and you go after it, it is possible. Like he sees all of this. And what was interesting about even like, we can revert back to canyons, right? In UTMB, I made a vision board for the first time this last year, like last fall for this year that we're in. And on that vision board in the center was UTMB and super cheesy. I've got like pictures of Courtney DeWalter on there because I'm me. But I had like Moab, like I have like running stuff. I have other, personal things on there as well, but all of my running goals are on there, right? And in my brain, I'm like, okay, like I'm putting it on there because hopefully I get into Moab and maybe I'll get my points for UTMB. And so it was funny because when I qualified at Canyons, I called my son on the phone on the drive home and I'm like, oh my gosh, Hollis, like I placed top 10. That means I get a ticket into UTMB. And the first thing that he says to me, he's like, Mom, that is in the middle of your freaking vision board. Like he made the connection of you made that happen. And I mean, obviously, yeah, there's a lot of other factors that help make these things happen. But I love that he sees like, hey, you can create a vision, you can go out and work for it, and it can happen. And I love that.
That story is so awesome.
It's crazy.
Like I have a 10-year-old son and so I'm relating to a lot of what you're saying, getting a little emotional just hearing it. And I'm like, parenting through sport or parenting through goals and goal setting is such a cool thing that we get to do as athletes or ultra runners or whatever we are. But like, it's such a cool way to demonstrate and to parent.
Yep.
And it's just a part of parenting, right? That we're learning, just like your Moab 240, like your first time. We're first time parents. Like you don't repeat, It's like we're making it up as we go.
First stage is first time.
I've got my spreadsheet of what I think I'm supposed to be doing with this child. And I came up a little short, but I was pretty close, man. Like
it's fluid. Everything's always changing.
Yeah. But you grabbed a Sharpie and you wrote Hollis on your left hand with some hearts.
Yes, I always do that every race.
Every race. Why do you do that?
It's a reminder for me, truly. Initially, the first time that I did it was to bring him with me, right? Like he was a little bit younger. He couldn't be there. And so I would take pictures at different places with that on there to be like, oh, look, I was thinking about you here and here and here. And then I show him these pictures later. I still do that. But I found also it was like two things. It was like helping him feel like he was involved. And like, I look down at it all the time. And it's just a reminder of maybe not why necessarily I'm out there, but a piece of it for sure. Like I'm out there to like be my best version, be the best version for him. And it's just, it kind of like takes me out of whatever moment of pain or dialogue I have going on in my brain. And it like brings me right back to it. And so this is also gross because you're always like super gross during ultras, but like I will like literally just like kiss my hand. Like I just like love looking at it. I'll kiss my hand. I have like this dumb little Sonic Lego that's his that I will keep in my pocket, and I will like kind of squeeze that too because he's obsessed with Sonic, and I'll take pictures of that through different places on the course as well so I can show him later. Kind of helps him feel like he's part of the team. Which he is, like, honestly, like he is part of the team.
He is the team.
And I told him this even after Moab, like when he called to talk to me after, and my first thing that I said, I was like, thank you for being so accommodating. Like you don't ever give me a hard time about getting up and going and running every morning and strength training and all of these other things. And you'll go out with me for hikes and you'll go out and ride your bike while I run. And like truly he is, my partner in all of this, and he loves it and he supports it. And so I do want him to feel involved, and he is inspiring to me as well. And so it goes both ways.
He's your crew, he's your pacer, he's your team.
Yeah, and 1,000%.
And it's so noticeable and admiring. Like,
thank you.
I see that, and I know a lot of people see that, and it's really special. Like, it's cooler than podium at
1,000%
at Moab. It's cooler than
1,000%.
finishing UTMB. Like, that relationship and that bond that you have with your son is like so much cooler than anything you'll ever accomplish in running.
The most valuable, I don't even want to say thing, I don't even know, but it is the most valuable part of my life is him and that relationship, but also just, I don't know, like I literally told him this yesterday. I was like, I just hope we're business partners when you grow up, because I want to be in business with you. Like, we're in the business of life together and everything else, but we are a good team, and he supports me. I support him. I don't even know. Like, I don't even know how to explain it or articulate it, but we are very close, and he is a very driving factor when I'm out there. Why I try to be the best version, right? I think we all have that when we become parents, where we're like, oh, like I got to start showing up a little bit better in my life, which is awesome, honestly. Like, I'm super thankful.
It's so great to hear. I love that, because this is the Next Aid Station podcast, and we have this, Next Aid Station mentality in trail running and ultras and in life. What have you taught him about like this, like aid stations, and like how it relates to life? And I know a lot of people talk about that analogy, but does he get that? Does he understand like what that means?
I think so. This is actually a mindset that we talk about a lot, honestly. I call it like the compound interest mindset, because we have these big goals, we have all of these things, and those are great, right? Races are great, whatever. Really, the fun stuff, though, is the day-to-day. It's the whatever you're doing in the moment. And we are very intentional about that stuff. We're very routine. We're very scheduled, but that allows us to kind of have that 20% unscheduled play. And we talk about like, okay, everything, like he's very scheduled. He gets up and he reads every morning, and he does his yoga. I have him do yoga every morning, and we've been doing that for a couple of years now, because I know how important it is to move your body every morning and to meditate, and he does that. And now we're at a point where he does his piano, he does all of these things in the morning before he goes to school, and then when he gets home from school, he has homework, and then he's got the rest of his day. But I think it's important to structure all of that, so he knows that long term, right, like we want to accomplish things. In order to do that, what can we do now? So like the Next Aid Station mindset or compound interest, like we know what our big goals are. We're always shooting for those, but we're living life every day. So we know if we want to feel good, if we want to do well in school, we want to do well in this sport, he has his sports that he does, then what do we need to do now in order to get to that next point? And a lot of it is just those daily things, like just being consistent, like honestly, just being consistent in the now. What's the choice right now that's going to help us do this next thing? We don't need to worry about what's happening 2 weeks from now.
Because if we do all the little things leading up to it in the morning and afternoon, day by day,
2
weeks from now,
that stuff takes care of itself. Ultimately, like I think like we make goals and we need to do those things, but ultimately he understands that, I don't want to get up and do this thing, but I know that if I get up and I do all of my stuff before school, and I do yoga and I do meditation with my mom and all of that, when I get home from school, guess who doesn't have to do those things? And and that's so small, but I think that that's the stuff that will set you up later.
Well, and at his age, you're creating such a great foundation for him, and just basic principles of like routine, consistency, hard work.
1,000%.
I mean, you're doing it the right way. I mean, it's awesome. I love hearing about that. You're such a great athlete, and you're really, I mean, strong runner. I think you've got some legs behind you still. Like you have things that you have not accomplished yet, and your resume already to this point is pretty awesome. But saying all that, far and away, like your greatest attribute from what I see is like you're the best mom. Like you're such a great mom to him.
Thank you.
An example to him. Like that
means more to me than anything else. Like you have no idea. Like that is my number one.
Well, so congrats to you for accomplishing all of the running things and the mom things with Hollis, and just living life. And I'm so grateful you took the time to come in and share all this with me and our listeners.
Thank you for letting me.
Your story is awesome. Not just your Moab 240 story, but your story as Elle Jones and Hollis, and everything that you're doing is just super admirable. Like I love hearing about it.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming in. Hopefully we can do it again sometime in the future. But we have a lot of DC Peaks races to do and organize together. So from Mick and me and the DC Peaks family, as always, thank you for your contribution.
You for letting me be a part of it, because highlight of my year. Like I love being a part of that race.
It's so fun.
It's so fun.
Yeah,
it's so fun.
Yep. It is fun. We've got more stuff coming. We added the 25K, which will start at your aid station.
Yes, I saw.
So they'll start right there at Mueller and go to the finish. So
yes, I'm pumped about that.
It'll be awesome. Mm-hmm. So hey, appreciate you having coming in, taking the time to be with us today. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Survivor's Jeff Probst on. That's my guy, and one day he's going to be here, and then we'll see what happens with Survivor
next time.
But for now, everyone, Elle Jones, thanks.
Thank you.